It's the give versus get mentality. And it doesn't have to be long unless you're long-winded. You can write a book about it. But I encourage you, that was for my wife, but she's not here. She always has long text. But do it daily. When you wake up in the morning, before you turn on the news, before the kids are in your hair or you have to go off to work, find someone, send a gratitude text, because you'll feel good for doing it. They'll feel great for getting the text. And then typically when you get the text back, it's even more. You're going to feel better than when you sent the text. So pay it forward. And this was one that I got from my buddy Dean. Hey, Greg, just want you to know that I'm grateful for our friendship. The day we met talking about college coverage at basketball games, I found a kindred spirit. You're a joy to spend time with, and I hope we'll find a way to build our friendship for many, many years to come. Aww. Dean's a great guy. He was the first guy that hired me to speak to the YWCA. He runs one over in Seattle. And so just a gratitude text. And this is what I got back from him. I sent a text to him and saying, hey, I miss you. They moved out of town. I said, next time you're in town, let's get a bottle of wine and catch up. So how do we go from being disengaged to productive? A couple of tips here. Plan tomorrow tonight. So this is more like when you're working. I know we're kind of quasi on vacation. But if you have a job, if you're a nurse, if you're a teacher or whatnot, before you go home that night, look at your calendar tomorrow. See what you have coming up so you can at least prepare a little bit. And in your mind, it'll help you sleep a lot better as well, too. You're not worried, what meetings do I have? Have I got the presentation done? Have I got the lesson plans done? So plan tomorrow tonight. And Brian Tracy was famous for coining Eat the Frog. It's a hard thing to do. I am not good with paperwork. I hate it, unless it's filing checks. But sending out invoices or proposals or all that is not my forte, and I know that. So every morning, that's what I start out with. I start out with the things I don't want to do. Because if we wait for them all day long, then we're worried about it, and our productivity slows because, I got to get that proposal out, got to get it out. But if you do it first thing in the morning, you got it out, you got the rest of the day to do the stuff that you love to do, and you can become more productive. Laugh daily, hourly, as needed. If needed. I encourage all of my clients that I talk to, and I encourage all of you in this room, in your calendar, put a daily task reminder to laugh. Even if it's for 5 minutes. You can pull up your favorite comedian, Robin Williams or Brian Regan. Babies laughing is always a good one on YouTube. But whatever makes you laugh, do that for 5 minutes. And maybe you had a really rough meeting with a client that went sideways. If you're stressed, go back to your office or your home, wherever you are, laugh again. Because when we do that, it helps. And I didn't know this. I was doing some research. I found out that 15 minutes of laughter can burn 15 calories, which is awesome. So I kept on reading, and I found out 30 minutes of sex burns 45 calories. And I'm a practical guy, right? So I combined the two, and I burned 12,000 calories while my wife was chasing me. Laughter is good. And then if you're in sales, happy salespeople sell 37% more. So people who are happy are better looking, they're more productive, they get a bigger pay raise, and they can make more money. Towards the end, mental health, I know we all deal with it, we all talk about it, we're talking about it more. But it was March 18th, 2018. My wife woke me up, we'd been married for a year, woke me up at 2 o'clock in the morning and said, we need to talk. And I thought, what did I do now? She said, Grant died last night. Grant is Rachel's dad. And I said, oh my God, what happened? And she said it was suicide. Not the way you want to be woken up. 2 o'clock on a Tuesday morning. So my wife Becky and I sat on the couch for 6 hours trying to figure out how to tell a 13-year-old that her dad's passed by suicide. It was complete hell. We didn't know what to do. We were Googling. We waited for a couple hours. My brother's a psychologist. So at 5 o'clock, I'm like, I'm calling Todd. I needed help. So she came downstairs and she saw us sitting there and she's like, what's going on? And Becky was like, sit down, we have some bad news to share with you. And when we shared it with her, she was more shocked than anything, just as I was when I first heard it, right? And with grief, there's a bunch of different stages. There can be anger, there can be shock, there can be crying, hurtfulness, all these kinds of things. And she said, you know what, I want to go to school today. And we kind of, maybe not the right play. She said, I want to go, I need to keep my mind off of things. And so we said yes. She came back about noon because she couldn't handle it anymore, just too much stress on her. But here's the thing about kindness and about laughter. That afternoon, two of our friends who have kids, Rachel's friends at school, two of them dropped by. And when you're talking to people, whether it's suicide or a car accident or cancer, so a lot of people say, well, what do I say, Greg? You really don't have to say anything. You have to be there with a hug and say, I'm sorry. That's all it is. The first couple showed up with a bunch of flowers, and they said, we don't know what to say. And we said, you know what, Mike, Kim, just thank you for being here. And then the other family showed up with a bucket of ice cream and a bunch of cookies. Yeah. They said, we don't know what to say or what to do, but we know that ice cream and cookies make us happy. So let's remember that when we hear of people who are struggling through grief, just be there. A text, a phone call, a hug can do so much. As well, laughter is a healer. It doesn't take away the pain, but it helps us get through it. 2 nights before her dad passed, I'd gotten us tickets to go see Brian Regan, a very famous comedian. If you haven't seen him yet, go YouTube him. Your grandma can watch him. Your kids can watch him. Very clean and very funny. So through my connections, I was able to get a meet and greet because Rachel knows all of Brian Regan's jokes. She can't remember to feed the dog, but she remembers all the punchlines. So she had no idea that we were going to do a meet and greet. It was at the hockey stadium that I was working at. And before the show, I said, hey, I want to show you where my office is. So we went downstairs. I knocked on the door. The door opened up, and Brian was like, Rachel, how's it going? And I've never seen a kid that dumbfounded. She's like, but you're the guy. He goes, yeah. He goes, I know your dad or your stepdad. And she's like, no way, you know each other? So we had about 5 minutes with Brian Regan's. Then we went out, we had front row tickets. It was just an amazing night. That was 2 nights before. And then he passed, and then we had all this turmoil and all this grief. And I remember about a week after, we were sitting at supper, we were talking, and the tears started flowing. All 3 of us were crying. I said, you know what? The only thing I know how to do to help us is to laugh. So we went over, we sat down on the couch, we pulled up his latest Netflix special, and with 10 or 15 minutes, all 3 of us were laughing. It got us through it. It didn't take away the pain, but it got us through it. So remember that. When you see somebody who's struggling with mental health, or people left behind after suicide, or people left behind from a car accident or cancer, or whatever it might be, to be there for them, you don't have to know what to say. You just have to be there and be present. But mental health is obviously a huge issue in our world, especially after the last 2 years. But also remember, you're not alone. You know, there's close to 100 people in this room when we've all had our journey, right? We've all had different degrees of anxiety or depression or mental health. So remember that we're all in this together. You're not alone. And if you are struggling and if you need help, reach out to someone that you feel comfortable with, whether it's a partner or a friend or a psychologist or anybody. Just reach out. Reach out to me. You can always go, my email's greg@gregkettner. And I always say this, I was doing a sports conference, speaking at a sports conference in Vegas in August. And the sports world, very type A, mostly men-driven, and they don't talk about mental health. Why would you, right? There's a lot of people that suffer from it, but I'm a sports guy. You play the game, you keep on going. So we had a mental health forum, and there was me, Michelle, and Brett. And I started out, I said, this is not a lecture. There's no stats, there's no slides, it's a conversation. And it was amazing how people opened up. The forum was supposed to last for 40 minutes. It went for 80. And we had conversations. People were standing up and said, you know what, I had a colleague somebody that I managed, and I knew that his dad passed by suicide, and I didn't know what to do. That was 7 years ago, and I still feel bad. I said, well, do you still have his contact information? He goes, yeah, he went to a different team. I said, all you need to do is send him an email, call him up and say, you know what? I wanted to apologize because I knew your dad had passed. I didn't know what to say, so I didn't say anything. I'm sorry. He emailed me a week later, and he said he's rekindled that friendship with that person, and he said he's never felt better about it, and he has no more guilt, just because he reached out and he talked to somebody. As I was walking back to my hotel room, a younger gentleman came running up to me and was like, Greg, can I talk to you for a second? And I said, yeah. And he said, I want to share your story because I feel like you're safe. We had a conversation. So he had just finished his senior year at Boston University. He was playing middle linebacker, and he had a heart condition, and he couldn't play football anymore. And so his dreams were dashed. He went into deep depression, had thoughts of suicide. And I said, I'm so sorry, how can I help? And he goes, just talking to you makes me feel better. And he said, you're the only person I've told this other than my mom and my counselor. And I was just overcome. I started crying. And he's like, what? I said, no, it's so cathartic for me to hear your story. So we never know the stories that are out there. So be empathetic, care about people, love and trust people, and that helps a lot. Like I said, you're not alone. Over 40 million adults in America struggle with anxiety, obviously at varying degrees, but it can be very, very crippling. So if you're in, reach out. People care about you. You matter. Men in the Middle is a group that we started in our town. I joined a support group for suicide in Walla Walla called Reach Out Walla Walla. So we're there to help each other get through the pain, but we're also there to talk more about mental health and make it a comfortable conversation instead of an awkward one. So we started a group because we found, and this is across the board in Walla Walla County, but the highest risk of suicide is men 25 to 45 in the trades. And so we have a group now in Walla Walla. We'll go for a beer together once a month. We'll go golf. We helped an old lady move. But when you get together and you serve other people, you're shoulder to shoulder, you can have these conversations about your kids, about your life, your job and whatnot. So now I've got 25 guys that if stuff goes sideways in my life, whether it's my marriage or I'm struggling with Rachel, being a stepdad, whatever it is, I have 25 guys that I can reach out to. It was so powerful, and I thought, this is great, but is it really making an effect? Well, my neighbor, Cody, is an EMT, lives right next door to us, and he's a great guy. He's got a really wicked sense of humor. We asked him once to watch our dog, Andy, for a couple nights, let him out, go to the bathroom and feed him, and we came home Sunday night and thanked him. And then Tuesday morning I woke up, a day and a half later, and we have some family pictures on our dresser in the room. And I looked, and here was a picture. Cody had taken a picture of himself, like creeping, and he put it in front of Becky and I's wedding photo. So I woke up and I saw Cody just looking at me in the bed. So that's the kind of guy he is. He has a really good sense of humor. But he's been in fire and EMT for a long time, and he's seen a lot of horrible things. He's suicide, deaths, accidents, house fires, that kind of thing. And so he went away to Virginia. There's a new program for firefighters and police to help them with their PSD. So he was there for 4 weeks, and he roomed with a guy and became friends, and he was telling me about this. Well, about a month or two later, I was taking some self-care. I was in the bath with a glass of wine and a book, and my phone went off. And Cody's like, I need to talk to you right away. And I said, well, it's not going to happen right away because I'm naked, but give me 5 minutes. So I ran out to the driveway, and he was just in tears. It was a complete mess. I'm like, dude, what's going on? He goes, the guy I was rooming with in Virginia took his life. Oh. But here we were, two grown men on a driveway on a warm summer evening, and we talked for an hour. He talked, I listened. But that's the power of reaching out, of talking to people, because we all struggle. And Robin Williams once said, everybody is going through something that we know nothing about. That's right. Always be kind. The Humor Lab. If you're on Facebook, most people are. I started a group on Facebook. It's the Humor Lab. Everybody contributes their humor. It's PG-13, no politics. And I'm adamant about the no politics, or it's got to be PG-13, because I want my grandma to see it, and I also want Rachel to be able to see it. But I started it because I thought, you know what, I'm going to be stuck in the house for a month or two, and here it is 2 years later. So I started this group, and last time I checked, we were at 30,000 people from around the world. And the coolest thing about it is that everybody's contributing to it, but weekly I get texts or messages from people saying, thank you so much for the Humor Lab. One guy on the East Coast, he said, thank you so much for this. I go to this every day. During COVID, I got a divorce, I lost my job, and my daughter got sick. And he goes, it's nice just to go there before I go to bed. I scroll through, I read, I laugh, so thank you for that. And so that has been, for many people, but for me, the feel good is hearing from people like that. And then also too, if anyone in this room, and chances are, I mean, that's just the odds, is suffering from depression or anxiety, and you may have thoughts of suicide, you can always text the word hello to 741-741, and there's a professional there to help you out, to get you on a phone, to help you find a counselor, somebody who will listen, who knows what they're talking about. And I encourage people to put that in your phone number. You can just write it, the name is hello, but the text, you can text it to 741-741, because you matter, we all matter, and people want the best for us. So, remember that number you chose at the beginning of my talk? What's the number now? 741-741. Sure. It's a high number. I like it. You were listening. But did the number go up? Hopefully. If it didn't, I haven't done my job. But it's always a good check-in, right? Whether it's the beginning of your day, beginning of your week. How happy am I? And if I'm not happy, what self-care do I need to do to get back to happy? Yep. So there's a QR code, I think it's called. I also send out a Friday Funny. Every Friday Money, again, it's PG-13, it's HR approved. So if any of you want that, you can scan the code or talk to me afterwards. But I send out a funny cartoon or a video, and it's good for me, but it's also got me a lot of business too, because people love to have something that they can share in their office, and they can be the humor hero. And this guy is obviously talking sales here. It says, for this part, I credit hard work, ingenuity, and perseverance, and the rest of the chart he blames on gravity. So that's it. So the three things I want you to take away is when we laugh, we connect. And when we connect, our hearts are opened up. And when our hearts are opened up, that's when we can make significant change in our worlds and everybody else. So thank you for what you do. I appreciate it. I'm Greg Kettner. We'll do it again. Thank you.